Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and I'm here today with Lauren from Paperback Empire. We're here today to talk about the short story Saturday pick for January, which is "Oh Pain" by Kyle Winkler. So, Lauren, you want to tell us about your channel and about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren, and my channel is Paperback Empire. And I primarily read science fiction, but I'm also a big fan of horror and fantasy, like specifically urban fantasy, and I read some high fantasy. But yeah, I'll honestly read anything if the description is good enough.
Yeah, I think just it's this is a tough collection to describe because I
Yeah,
think I saw it described as like weird fiction. I think is
yeah, I would
definition.
agree with that. I would agree
So,
with that.
so you would call it weird fiction. How would you describe it to someone who has not read it yet?
Um, it's funny. Different stories, various stories, kind of uh, made me think and feel different things. Overall, though, I would say it built suspense very similarly to the way that Shirley Jackson builds suspense in her books.
Hmm.
She or he that some of the elements in the book, there were some like kind of fantastical elements going on. It was very avant-garde, experimental, very thematically rich. But I would say overall, I probably just describe it. Yeah, I think weird fiction is probably, if you just had to put like a genre label on it, that's about as close as you're going to get.
Yeah. So I guess we should kind of go through each one. I have notes for each one, and there was a few that we were talking before we went live, but there was a few that we were kind of like not sure really what's going on. But
Yeah, yeah.
so the first story is Bite, and that's about a woman named Emily who bites her baby. So what were your takeaways from this one?
um, so that was definitely, it set a tone for me. That, as far as like suspense building, um, that story, I'm not sure that I like fully get. Like, I'm sure it was very symbolic and had a lot of meaning, which I think for that specific story, it was that was a little lost on me. However, for me, that story built was one of the best at building suspense, like tension, really tension. Um, that was just my big thing. Like, whenever that story was over, I was like,
Yeah, for that one, I you know, like you said, I think it sets a tone right away because the first line in the book and the first line in the story is Emily bit her baby.
yeah,
So right away it catches your attention. I mean, you
yes,
whether it gives you a reaction, whether it's positive or negative. Um,
yeah,
but the few things that uh, that kind of took I had takeaways from this on is the small town that there's a line that says small towns breed this kind of unearned informality, which is the
mm,
store, and so that kind of the small town where everyone thinks that they know each other. There's kind of this small town feeling, and some of my takeaways from this were what I took away from this one is like postpartum depression
yeah, yeah,
or
for sure.
the stress and the all the different because like there's like a page of all these different childcare products and diapers and
Hmm.
wipes and all these different things that could be really overwhelming. So I think that's part of it is a postpartum depression and the inattentive husband who seems like Emily was struggling with all these things and the husband's talking about another kid about having
Yeah,
another child and
yeah,
I don't think anyone really I don't think he really knew he wasn't. I think there was a few lines about him just kind of vegging out in front of the TV or something, and I think that he didn't realize that she was really struggling uh, with this.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, it was very like this huge internal struggle for this woman, and it was also, as like I am a childless woman, right? And so for me, it almost had this kind of a cautionary tale quality to it, of like as far as postpartum depression. I don't know if cautionary tale is a good way to put it, but like kind of lifting the curtain to on something um, that I would otherwise not really be familiar with. and like how bad it can be and like what that might feel like and how it may feel kind of cuckoo and you know just like experience that's I don't know, it seemed being like in that mindset, um it seemed very evocative of what that experience might be like.
Yeah, I think there's a few mentions too of the changes that were to her body before and after, and that must be a lot to process, for women. So that was one of the more I don't want to say intense, but it was kind of a lot to take away from that one that kind of stuck with me with this story.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say for me as well, that was definitely one of the most intense in the book. And um, even like after I finished that story, I was like, if they're all like this intense, I don't. This is going to be a rough ride. But they all the story. I mean, they all seem to like kind of do something different. They were all definitely pretty intense, but that like don't bite your baby, don't bite it. It freaked me out.
Yeah, and the fact that she had these urges and she would hide it, and so that was kind of it was very
Yeah,
effective.
like uncontrollable. Like I think that that was like an interesting theme. It was exploring like that complete and utter lack of control.
Mhm.
And I think that that's I don't know what sort of ramped up the tension for me. It was just like you're in the mind of this person who has no control over this behavior, and it's just like front row seat for it.
So do you have any other thoughts on before we go to the next one? Do you have any more thoughts on Bite?
I think that's all I got.
Yeah, that was pretty intense.
Yeah.
So the second one was The Slow Work. This is a really short one. So that this is one of the ones that I wasn't quite sure what to make of. What did you think about this one?
I would actually agree on that, especially I think it because it was so quick. I mean, it was 10 pages maybe.
Mhm.
Um, so I yeah, that one was lost on me.
Yeah, that wasn't it was kind of like mindless toil. My notes here were mindless toil, cleaning. Um, yeah, I wasn't quite sure what to make of that one. Was
Yeah.
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 There's a few of these that I was wondering what am I missing? Like what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same. Same.
So the third one was Terrorology. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah.
With the girl who uh, was she radioactive or she was like she had a mutagen?
Yeah. Yeah. This one I feel like definitely lined up most closely to what I would call like weird fiction,
Yeah.
having that sort of like monstrous element in it, that's sort of like accepted as reality and like just how things are. Um, yeah, overall, I actually really enjoyed that one. Just sort of seeing the progression of the events in that. But yeah, it was very like weird fiction to me.
Yeah, I think the on one of my notes here is that she was a walking Chernobyl is kind of
Yeah,
the the short of it, but the the storytelling and the presentation was really neat to see how that unraveled and how the different researchers and the way that this scientist was attached and they adopted this girl and all the things that happened after that.
yeah, yeah, and like seeing her effect on everyone that she was around at all, but still, um, it didn't really put people off.
Right.
Like she was still just like this lovable, wonderful, but had this profound effect on everyone she came in contact with.
Yeah, I think it was a touching story in a way, but kind of still it's a lot of these. I almost had to kind of because I read a story a day for a while, and I kind of
Mhm.
have when I would read the story, I kind of had to put my preconceptions and my expectations. You have to go in with just no expectations because it's tough to kind of wrap your head around some of them when you have these preconceptions going into the story because they're really odd.
Yeah, yeah, they are.
Hey,
Yeah,
Jonathan,
especially
thanks
but
for
that one was so it was so removed from it was so different from the 2 that had come before.
yeah.
The first 2, there was, like, this sort of similarity, but then, teratology or whatever it is, uh, it kinda went in a different direction. I was like, "Oh, okay, we're taking a turn here and going down this other."
Yeah, and in a way, I think it kind of helped me do like a story a day because they're all really, they're different, kind of different pace, and they're all really different
Yeah,
stories.
yeah. Yeah, I think I read it over the course of maybe 4 or 5 days, so I read a couple of them a day,
Mm.
uh, so yeah. It was an interesting progression, like, the way they were like, the order that they were arranged in. Because
Yeah,
I
I
feel
think
like it would kind of it sort of you felt like every story you were like a twist and turn to something else. It's like, "Ooh, okay."
yeah, every story was definitely a different experience.
Yeah.
And hey, Jonathan, thanks for coming by and howdy. Now the next story was nutrition. Um, this was another one that was I had to read twice because I wasn't quite sure what was going on. So, what are your thoughts on this one?
I did not get this, like, at all. Like, I got nothing. I mean, of all the stories, like, I don't get it.
I was hoping you would tell me because I was like, I hope Lauren understands what's going
I don't understand.
on. But yeah, so it's they were basically those they're feeding ghosts to the living.
Yeah.
Kind of my take. And the probably the creepiest part was in the beginning when these ghosts were kind of just hanging out and
Yeah.
being having just they had this presence, but um, so
Yeah.
yeah, that was a strange one too. But um, yeah, and they're deliberate. It seems like they were deliberately poisoning people with the
Mhm.
meals. Was that your?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And especially it was I don't know what you would call like the main character, the protagonist, or like the perspective that we were kind of watching it from, who was like reluctant to eat them.
Yeah,
Like there's a meaning here just beneath the surface, and like I can't get to it.
and I felt the same way. I think in all of these, there's something there, and I would see what am I missing? Like what is this referencing? Because there's something there, and they're all really well written and interesting. It's just
Yeah.
at the end of it, it's like what you know.
Yeah, that was like, I was talking to my husband about it as well too while I was reading it is um it would be one thing if I was like missing meaning and it wasn't written well, but like he writes really well.
Yeah,
Like the writing of it is so good. And so it's just like there is something here and I'm not getting it. Like it's just but the ones that I did get, like I really got and were very meaningful to me. It was very like black or white.
yeah, yeah. That's a good way to put it. No, the do you have any more? So nutrition was, I think there's something there.
Something.
Yeah, there's something there. Now the next one was and lo, it was Thursday in Ohio. This is one of my favorite ones. What were your
Yeah.
thoughts? Yeah,
Yeah, I noticed after I read this, after I read the book, I was like looking through reviews, and that seems like a general crowd favorite. Like a lot of people who have reviewed that are like that one, that's the one. Yeah.
and I did see there was a lot of humor in this one.
Hmm.
The characters and the dialogue, there were some really funny moments, and I saw the humor kind of come out in this one, and just the kind of the dry humor.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that but it was very for me like thematically had a lot to do with just sort of the meaning and purpose in life and the loss of that.
Hmm.
and kind of want the idea of that being gone, that
Yeah.
there is no meaning and there is no purpose, and then what? Like what the living keeps on going, but there is like kind of a nihilistic sort of uh, like consideration, I guess.
Yeah, and I did like that we had, because it starts out with the angels are picking up, you're eating the trash, right?
Yeah.
And they're these government employees who come once a week to eat the trash, and
Yeah.
uh, so it's just really strange. And then
Yeah.
you come to find out that the god was dead. It doesn't. I don't think it gets into what happened with that, but um, the some of the things that I took up were like government bureaucracy, or how they were the angels that were left over just became this tool for them to use, and kind of like a function of the government, just to say, okay, now you're gonna eat everyone's trash.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm becoming like moving from this job and this meaning and this purpose into this like
Yeah,
polar opposite. Uh, yeah, that was pretty. That was a fun one.
yeah, and I did like the excuse me, the back and forth dialogue, and the references to uh, Neil deGrasse Tyson. That was pretty funny.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that was a fun one. And just the angels, I think they started falling and landing on cars, and
yeah,
yeah, it's just that was probably one of the funnier ones, I think.
yeah. I particularly like the angel going down the block, kind of like a lost puppy, and just sort of like looking back.
They're almost like they're almost like lost pets. They just didn't
Yeah,
want to kill themselves.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really strange.
Kind of sad, but funny all at the same time.
Yeah, it was one of those where I almost felt bad laughing, because
Yeah,
because they're these fallen angels that they're just falling apart and they're eating trash once a week.
yeah. Like there's like you feel like the almost the sort of sacrilegious thing for it like being as funny as it is, like challenging you in that regard. Like, is it okay to laugh at this?
Kind of look around, make sure no one's watching you. Laugh
Yeah,
about eating trash on Thursday.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's really strange. That was a fun one. I think that was a fun story. I think it
yeah,
was the way that the story was told, and the angels, and the way that you kind of learned what's happening, and all that was really, and there was some really funny dialogue. I thought the humor
yeah, yeah.
came out of that one. Now the next one, actually, I take it back what I said about the last story. I think Smudge the Head may have been my favorite.
I loved Smash the Head.
Yeah.
That was
What are
definitely like in my top three favorites.
what are your thoughts on that one?
That I think that one probably stood out to me as it was the most unusual in comparison to the rest of the collection because it felt more like, it felt closer to an actual just like fantasy short story. Um, and just conceptually, and I didn't know where it was going. Like whenever I first started reading it, it was like, oh, this is going to this is going to be bad. Oh my gosh. But it took this like just sort of lovely fantastical turn and that I thought was like pretty enchanting by the time I finished it. Like it was so imaginative, and that was just like a really lovely story.
Hmm. So I did wonder, because so it's a mom who has a child, and the child is drawing on the wall, and the child, and Smudge is, one of the creepier parts was when the child says, "The smudge let me out."
Yeah.
So I did wonder about her name being Mary. Now, if there was some religious uh, references going on there.
Oh, ooh.
I was curious about that. Yeah, I wanted to get your thoughts on
Ooh.
that, because Maybe I'm thinking, maybe I'm looking too deep into it, but wanted to see what you thought about that.
That's actually, I hadn't thought of it that way. That's a good point though, because like I think like one of the most obvious, like strongest themes in the story was that of like a mother's sort of love and protection, and her child like being being taken, and having to endure this sort of miserable thing. I hadn't thought of that. That's actually that's a really good observation. It's a really good observation. Ooh, I'm gonna go back and read that after we finish this.
Hmm. And what another thing I did kind of on my notes, I did write down about how art can be all consuming. It can consume you with art. You can get kind of wrapped up in it, and it can start taking like for really. And I'm not one of the creatives, but I can imagine the people who are really into art, or that like painting or drawing or writing or whatever it may be, that it can consume your life. And that's kind of part of it. Is I wonder if that was um, kind of the thought behind it, is that art is consuming them.
Yeah. Yeah, and also like the mother, I guess she owned an art supply store,
Mm.
and kind of getting her child into this thing that she clearly was interested in, and then sort of like the negative consequence of sort of maybe like pushing what you care about onto your kid,
Mm.
and
Oh
like
yeah.
the consequence of that.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah. Huh. I like that. I didn't think about
Yeah.
that.
And that ultimately kind of, I guess, his salvation in a sense was was art. Though it was a downfall, it was also like the solution.
Hmm. Interesting. I like that. And
Yeah.
Harfoot is here. Hey Harfoot, thanks for coming by. Hope you're having a great night as well.
Hello.
And I did for this one, I did want to get your thoughts on the ending. What are your thoughts on how it ended?
Um I love the ending. That's the type of ending that I really enjoy. Is that sort of like very open. It felt very like open ended to me. Um and I although it was like simultaneously like pretty open, but also brought the whole thing like full circle.
Hmm.
I don't know how spoilery, if we can
No,
like
go.
get
Yeah,
into
go for it. Yeah,
it. Okay.
I'll put that
Yeah, like I think it was
down.
very unexpected that I don't know, just what am I trying to say? Yeah, I think like what I was saying a minute ago, the way that sort of the downfall was the art in the end, and like having it be sort of the solution to the problem, like I didn't see it coming.
Mhm.
Or saving him with by like honing her skill that she sort of pushed on him to begin with.
Hmm. I'm gonna go back and read that one too, because now that you mention it, I didn't think of it that way, but I think you're onto something. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that like it was both like thematically rich, but like I was mentioning when we first started talking about this specific one, like it was like it felt very fairy tale at the same time.
Yeah,
Kind of
at the end,
grim, but a
yeah,
fairy tale.
yeah, yeah, it was grim, but at the end, it was almost like a happy ending in
Yeah.
a strange kind of way, because they end up in this other world, but they never really we never really got an answer on the smudge, or did it? Unless,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like it was just basically a catalyst, and then that was it.
Mhm.
Like the
Yeah,
smudge creature.
I kind of like that there a lot of the I think maybe all of these are ambiguous in some way, that kind of leave you to fill in some blanks after.
Yeah. I like that in sort of a villain too. Um, sort of that sort of hidden and ambiguous villain. So I think that that's a big part of why it worked so well for me, was because it wasn't like, and then this happens in the end, and then the thing comes up to him, and it looks like this, and it does this, and I think the fun of it is it stays kind of this mystery
Mhm.
that it's never truly like fleshed out. It's never you know it just stays like intriguing.
It's kind of like in movies when when you can when there's a creature or there's something that is kind of a you're the villain and you get just bits and pieces of it. You don't really, ever really see it, but you know it's there.
Yeah.
Kind of what it reminded me of.
Or just like seeing the effects of it. Like you don't really see it so
Right.
much. It's just like what it does and what it causes. I love that.
So you're saying you don't like when the villain is explained in the first chapter, like a bunch
God, I
of
hate that. Don't do that. Authors, no.
yeah, that's never a good one. Yeah,
Uh-uh.
that yeah, I think that one that that one left. Yeah, I'm gonna go back and read that one. I think
Same.
there's a lot.
Same.
There's a lot there. Yeah, I even started looking up famous painters or famous artists that had the same name because the name of the son was a little different. It was Luis. Is that the name, or it was the way it was spelled was a little.
I honestly can't remember at this point. I was clearly like with names on this
Yeah.
one, like
So yeah, that was a good one. Now the next one is one that I on my notes I wrote. I think it's called the memo, but on my notes I put, "Didn't you get the memo?"
yeah.
Um,
It was so Office Space to me.
yes, yeah, exactly.
Like definitely like office bureaucracy.
Mhm. They get downgraded in status. They didn't read the memo.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
another one that he, the character was he didn't read the memo. He was downgraded in status, and everyone was kind of berating him. And I don't remember if it was a man or woman, but they were constantly talking about what he did wrong or right.
Yeah.
And he starts thinking, well, I once nursed a bird back to health, and I'm not a terrible person. And so I think this is a one of the funnier ones too. Is that how that kind of culture and that kind of office space kind of thing can really get in your head and kind of make you start questioning yourself and kind of the silliness of it all.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it kind of opening with that that he got the memo to be there at 3 and he was there at 3 but he was late. And it's just like that is life right there. Like that feeling of even when you're doing it right, you're doing it wrong.
Mhm.
I think it really kind of ramped up that feeling like you can't you just can't win no matter
Yeah,
what you do.
just can't get out of your own way sometimes,
Yeah.
and just these expectations and these. Yeah, I thought that was. I thought it was pretty funny. Like it did
Yeah.
remind me of Office Space. Yeah, kind of the TPS report thing.
Yeah. And like not having enough flair.
Yeah, yeah,
Like I've got the right amount of flair, but is it the right amount?
yeah. That was a one of the funnier ones.
Yeah.
Um, so you have any do you have any other you have any other thoughts on the memo before we go into the next one?
No, I think that was mostly it, like how like professionally relatable.
Yeah, yeah. That was a good one. That was relatable.
Yeah.
Now the next one was one of the ones that the only thing I have for this one is I was confused by this one. So that was Last Night with Sicily.
hmm Yeah.
Now
This
I
was
was pretty lost.
yeah, this was another one of my favorites. I really love this.
Mm,
This actually reminded me a whole lot of I've been watching on Amazon Prime. I've been watching Tales from the Loop, and this
mm.
reminds me a whole lot of Tales from the Loop, like the machine in it, and which that show's great, by the way. If you're looking next time you're looking for something to watch, you should really check out Tales from the Loop.
I'm gonna put that on right now.
Uh, as far as like deeper meaning to it, I was so just kind of enraptured by this. I don't know if you would call it like sort of a mystical, like the mystical quality of the story and this like thing and how it works. As far as thematically, though, I'm not totally sure.
Okay.
I'm really not, because I got really wrapped up in that, in the story of that one. That my whole
Okay.
like, what does it mean, shut down?
Yeah, this is I enjoyed the story. I just when it was over, I was like, I'm not quite sure I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was definitely like as far as there was definitely a lot of commentary on like the boy with the mother who was having her own troubles, but also like trying to completely dominate and control him, even though her life was like very clearly completely out of control. And then the friend who's like watching this from the sidelines and trying to figure out like how to handle it. So it was very like family relationship, I think.
Yeah.
And like being a friend watching someone going through that with a parent or a family member. Yeah. I don't know. I just thought that story was cool.
Yeah. I think they're all cool. I enjoyed all of them. It just some of them were kind of like I'm not quite sure what happened, but
Yeah. Well, reading the afterword by the author, it sounds like he was exploring a lot. I guess he said that his mother, she had like a terminal illness, and so he kind of was kind of pulling on that experience and like watching that sort of pain in his mother, like the female experience side of that, and was reflecting a lot on like female pain specifically. So, and I wish I would have read that before I started reading the book, because I think it would have like framed, like given me a lens to sort of frame a lot of it through.
oh wow. I don't always skip the afterward, but I didn't read it in this one, so
Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, I think that whole experience with his mom was like a big inspiration, for the collection.
hmm.
Yeah.
Now it makes a lot more sense now with because now that you say that, a lot of these are um, motherhood or parenthood or you know family dynamic.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
Um,
And, Mr. Morningstar is here. Did this story have elements of magical realism, or was it the mystical aspect something else? I guess both are hard to describe.
yeah, I would say it definitely was like magical realism, as far as like sort of like the magic qualities being sort of normalized and not weird. Like it was
Mm,
just like there's magic and or these sort of fantastical things, and it's just kind of how it is. That's how I view magical realism anyway.
yeah, yeah. It was grounded. It didn't seem too mystical. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was yeah.
Although like the kind of it kind of varied from story to story though.
Yeah. Yeah. Every story was pretty different. Yeah.
Yeah, and as far as like those kind of qualities about each one were from like very different angles.
Mm. And now that you say that about how he in the afterward, I didn't read that in this one, but no, the next story makes a lot more sense with that context. That was Homebody.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. I'm a story ahead. Sorry,
Oh yeah,
Homebody. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So Homebody, I thought was really cool.
yeah,
The video is really cool. So it's basically um, auto mappers and meta mappers, and the government or these agents are. I love the way they approach uh, the auto mapper, and they're like, just cut off one of his leg. I think it was his arm or his leg.
yeah, yeah. I think they cut off his leg.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was like, all we need is a leg. That's all we need. Just no big deal. Like,
and the dude was like, "Yeah, take my leg."
yeah,
What?
That was so neat. That whole idea was so cool. I thought that was so creative.
Yeah. Yeah, that one was one that for me, I didn't really understand it. Like it was an enjoyable read, but sort of like the way you felt about Last Night with Cicely, like I was like, ooh, I'm missing something here.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of these stories that have so many more stories to be told in these worlds or these these kind of setup. But I think Homebody was a really neat idea with the auto mappers and meta mappers. Um, and I did like there was some when the agents approach this woman and she's I think they're drinking tea, and
Mhm.
she one of the funnier moments was when I have written down here nodded like a bothersome grandmother.
Yeah.
There's some those little sprinkles of humor. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, really shine through in
Yeah.
stories like this.
Well, and that
But
character
yeah,
is her general like tude. Like she had so
yeah,
much attitude.
yeah,
She's a really fun character.
yeah. It was really neat, and the meta mapper I think is such a and the auto mapper and the meta
Mhm.
mapper is really just a really cool idea.
Yeah, I agree. It has this it almost had like sort of a sci-fi urban fantasy like conceptually kind of it was like this could be a movie. Like ooh.
Yeah, yeah, it could be. Yeah,
It was like very
I thought that was
cinematic in a way.
and Homebody. I tried to kind of because that's the name of the story is Homebody. I tried to what where because I'm sure that title, um, that title is has some kind of connection to the story. Did you kind of because she doesn't really go many places. I think that's kind of what I took it as is that she was she was a meta mapper. We found that out at the end, but she also stayed home a lot. She never really went anywhere.
Yeah. I think it's because it wasn't obvious that she was.
Right.
So maybe just referencing that, like, uh, yeah, just having something to do. It wasn't totally obvious.
Right.
Um, because that's like whenever I think of like a homebody, you know.
Yeah. And I thought it was funny that she befriends this neighbor, and then she's like cut off, and they become friends, and then she's just like chopping off his leg.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then the government operatives are like having her do these things, and she's just like, okay,
Yeah,
what?
yeah. We just need you to go get this from his house, or
It's
it's
like,
just like
okay,
just cut off his leg. No big deal. We
yeah,
just need a leg. We just need a limb.
yeah.
Like, okay, sure. You're like,
Yeah, and it's also like they could have just he seemed like they could have just asked him, although I guess there was more to it than that, but he was just like, "Yeah, just take my leg." Like, this like everyone's just kind of going along with this. It's like, what?
yeah, that was a yeah, that was they were just a really cool setup.
Yeah. I love that. Like it's so unexpected I love that whenever that's like dropped in stories, like you assume that characters are going to feel a certain way and react a certain way and behave a certain way. And they do the exact opposite. Like you're just like, oh, he's gonna find out and he's gonna get and that's not it at all. Like he just like willingly does it. And it's just like very disarming, I guess, whenever characters kind of react like that in like
Yeah,
super unexpected ways.
like here, sure, go ahead, take it.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, that was great. So we have a couple more. So Bee Hunter was the one that um, makes a lot more sense now that we talk about the afterward.
Yeah.
Um, so
That was
let's
another
see.
of my favorites.
Oh, did you like this one?
Yeah, I really love this one.
So what were your thoughts on this one?
Um well, I have a parent that has a terminal illness. Um and so I found it like it really hit
Mm,
close to home for me. I mean, obviously, it's not the exact same situation or anything, but um, it just struck me more like on a personal, like very relatable sort of level,
mm,
and also kind of made me think like if that's because the stories are all like so very different, if and they're all very clearly very like intimate, like conceptually they're very intimate. If that's how most people kind of see it, where there's like just that one that like really gets to you or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was just trying to um like doing the best that you can for a loved one, and like while also sort of carrying their pain, trying to do right by them. And you have no control, and you have specifically no control over how they're handling it and what
Right.
they're doing. um just one of those, like, you do the best you can, but you have to sort of accept that you are completely out of control.
Yeah. I think what excuse me, what struck me is that the son caring for his mother wanted so badly to kind of get her out and kind of, kind of have a nice day. And I think it became a thing where he was trying so hard to just make this day special for his, just kind of get out and do something. And he kind of, in his efforts to kind of have this special day with her, he kind of maybe pushed things on her that, and he didn't realize until after that she didn't like music, and he drug her to this concert. And so
Yeah,
he had all these really good intentions, and just everything went wrong
yeah,
for him.
yeah, yeah. That like kind of, I think it really explored that feeling of like whenever you think you know best and you think you know like what needs to be done, and sort of coming face to face that like you don't know. And that's a hard pill to take, to think that you know, and you know what's best, and there's no doubt about it, like you're wrong, you're super wrong. And
Yeah,
like what that, I don't know, just I think it was a very interesting and honest reflection on what that feels like,
I would imagine that's
specifically in
yeah,
a really trying circumstance.
yeah, that's very vulnerable, and to admit that you don't know, what to do, you don't know
Yeah,
how to handle everything, or that's it's really um, vulnerable. It must be very vulnerable and just frustrating, and because you want to do the right things, but you just can't
yeah.
seem to get it right. So yeah,
And
it's
then
really really tough.
seeing someone outside of the situation who's not even a part of it do it all right.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point with the, I forget his name, the person
Yeah,
who just keeps running into them, and
yeah,
he becomes bitter on this man who just kind of helps, and he's a really friendly he just helping out, but
yeah.
he
Play
gets this
nice.
anger towards him. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was like in so many ways it was just like this huge study in vulnerability. Um, really for all the
Hmm,
characters in different ways in the story.
that's a good point. I think one of the one of the first lines that I one of the lines I wrote down was, her cultural circuits were clogged with fat apathy. And I think that's the beginning of the story. I think over the course of the story, his attitude changed and his perspective changed when from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
Um, I did want to ask you um, about the bees, the drones, and the bees. What did that represent for you?
um well, I think for me it's like just sort of thinking, when you think about like a bees and a bee colony, and like I kind of like overlaid that with sort of like the daily grind of just human existence.
Mm,
um and you know bee hunt is it being called bee hunter, it's like something is interrupting, like an interruption, um of just like a major interruption of like your normal life, whenever like you know a wrench gets thrown in it. And
mm.
like I don't know, that's kind of what it how I saw it.
That's really insightful. I didn't think of it that way, but that's a really good. I think you're onto something there. That because that's part of the story that I was confused with is the bees and what that represented. But I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's like we're just kind of all like these worker bees while we're alive and while we're healthy and while everything is going great. But like there's something coming for all of us one day, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's undefeated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the so the next one was Geschmark.
hmm
What were your thoughts on this one?
This is the one that I think I've like thought about the most. That it's I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Like this one of all of them is like, okay, this is like there's really is like a big theme here, and I'm not grasping it.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Like
So
symbolism, like a lot of symbolism. I'm not sure like what it is.
yeah. So this one, it's a young woman with a hole in her neck,
hmm
and she's hiding items, and she's taking items. She takes the guns from her, I guess her mom's boyfriend,
Yeah.
and these items start to these. She starts to get these things come out of her out of her neck,
Yeah.
like just at these really bad times. Like there's like ammunition and magazines and things come out of her neck. So and then she ends up stuffing her stepdad into the into the hole too.
Yes. Yes, like I thought I had a hold on I was like, I think I might know what this is about. And then that happened. I was like, I don't know what this is about. Because like with the guns and the ammunition, I was like, this must be some sort of statement on like conservatism and like gun control, right? I
Mm.
was like, oh, this is what's going on here. And then I kind of lost a hold like as the story progressed. I was like, I don't know if that's what this is about anymore.
I was on the same track as you. I was thinking about gun control and that kind of thing, and then at the end, and there is some with the owl, and I was wondering if there's some kind of religious symbolism with some of the parts of the story.
Oh, that's a good
But
observation.
yeah,
Yeah.
the stepdad being stuffed in the hole was like, okay,
He's like, what?
what the hell? Yeah,
I think a lot of these stories are kind of like that, where it's like, okay, I think I have a hold of like what's happening here, and then something happens, you're like, no, I don't.
yeah, yeah. So the last one was every day you got up and go to work.
uh-huh.
uh every day you got up and go to work. I think that's the name. This was one of the funniest ones for me. This is probably one of my top three.
Yeah,
What do you think about this one?
yeah. It was very. I thought it was actually a really an interesting one to close on. Uh, it felt theme theme wise, it kind of was very similar to the memo to me, just sort of that mindless automaton, um, and this like just sort of doing your duty and like nothing else. You'll forget everything else. You'll forget where you came from. You just kind of just go on and on and on.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's very unusual to read a story with like that second what is it second person POV like you
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of like
the fifth season.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I I agree with you about I kind of on my notes here have kind of some about adulthood and the mundane day-to-day drudgery,
Mm-hmm.
losing sight of your hopes and dreams, becoming a worker bee. But there are some really funny moments in here about when the character witnessed the as a child witnessed the petting zoo pony choke on an inflatable football.
I forgot about that.
Oh, there's so many little gems
Yeah.
in all of these stories, but this last one had a few in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for this one, I kept thinking as I was reading, I kept thinking he's having fun with it. Like he had fun writing this one. This looks like, it seems like he's having fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's just having a laugh. But there, I think there is more here, like you said. But you kind of your dreams, and you just kind of you just fall into line, and you
Hmm.
kind of forget, kind of what you wanted to do, and it's just you just kind of go along and
Yeah.
get more work maybe. But this man is washing this giant in
Yeah. A
all the
giant
workplace,
lady.
yeah, giant lady, and just all the weird, and it's like drinking is encouraged, and
Yeah.
um, all the workplace accidents that someone disappeared,
Hmm. Yeah, and I was like also thinking about it from not just all of these like the characters who were doing the washing, but like from the perspective of the lady getting washed. Like this is what your life is. You're a giant lady who just gets washed.
So what was your kind of what would the giant lady, what would that represent for you as you finish the story?
Um, for me, for my own like experience in life, my own perspective, I'm just like I see it more as like um and I'm not sure if I remember this correctly, but or if this was even stated exactly, but like all the washers being men and this woman who's this giant just being a woman and all these men are coming in and washing her. So this is how like I'm saying it in my mind. So for me in my life it's a call to being useful and being productive and like doing more than like sitting on my lily pad like getting washed. But that's also like a personality type. Like I'm just like watching this, just like I don't want to be that lady.
You don't have yeah.
That's like my big takeaway was like, don't be that lady.
But I this in all these stories, it's just these kind of like a lot of them I was kind of scratching my head after, but they stick with you and you think about them.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
But
For
there's
sure.
yeah, this one I did had a lot of laughs with this one. This is another really funny one. This one and the um it's Thursday in Ohio. Those
Hmm.
two are probably the funniest ones, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I have, and this is why I love not only these kind of stories, but having these kind of discussions, because I have a whole new perspective after talking to you about a lot of these that I didn't even consider.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And it's like really good to talk it like something that felt like this kind of out there and experimental, really good to talk it through with someone who's like also read it. Like I talked with my husband about it a fair amount, but he hadn't read it. So I'm like, well, this and this and this happened, and he'd try to help me sort of sort through it. I'm like, but you didn't read it, like you don't get it.
This is a really tough one to describe, because if I was talking to someone who hadn't read it yet, and so what is how would you describe it? It's like, well, it's weird fiction
Yeah,
is like the best. It's hard unless you've read it to kind of explain kind of what to expect.
yeah.
It's different.
Yeah, and I would definitely this is like a book I would recommend to like writer friends who because this seems like this would be a good exercise, a good or very inspirational for someone who's trying to like get better at just creative writing and really good like high quality writing and stories that are just sort of out there and unexpected. Like it seems like it would be a really good, very thought provoking and like good exercise and sort of thinking outside the box as far as like your writing. I mean, I'm not a writer, but I think if I were, I think it would be very inspirational in that regard.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is uh, and there's a few stories, and I should have written down which ones they were, but there's a few stories that as I was reading the language, it kind of flowed in a certain way, and there was the sentences. It was almost like reading poetry, but it didn't.
Yeah.
read like poetry, but there is some like the rhythm of the writing had a certain rhythm to it. It kind of had a different feeling to it, and it seemed purposeful that um, kind of have this flow to it. And I'm not a writer. I can't pick that kind of thing out. I'm not. That's just not where my brain is. But it was very very well written.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It has a very, yeah, like a lyrical quality to it, and it's not, but it's just enough. Like
Mm.
it's the stories. I think the only story that I felt like wasn't quite enough was probably the slow work, like the being unborn. That's probably the only one in the collection that I could have like taken some more. I probably could have taken some more to like get that one a little bit better. But otherwise, I feel like they were all like just the right amount, like no more, no less. Like this was just exactly what it needed to be. I don't know. I think that Kyle Winkler is like a very, very talented writer. Even though I didn't get most of it, like I know good when I read it.
Yeah, it's very well done. And the slow work, yeah, that one was one that I thought. I think it was short on purpose, but I just didn't get it. I just didn't
Yeah,
quite get. It
probably was the
wasn't
same
enough for me
person.
to. Yeah, just couldn't quite. I think it was purposeful, but I didn't have enough to where I can grasp onto what was being conveyed there.
Yeah, yeah. Like that one, it felt like there was like a huge meaning behind it, and it was so quick. It was like you just blink and it's gone. Like, whoa.
Yeah, it was super short, and but the only really the takeaway I had is that uh, there was a few things was like reincarnation or like the cycle, like we're just going in circles, kind of
Hmm.
like because he's unborn and then he comes back and he goes back to his birth where his mother gave birth to him, or just um, the finality of life and just
Yeah,
we're just going in circles over and over again, just kind of going back to the beginning. So
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I can't help it. Maybe it was, like kind of a reflection on like how quickly like life can be undone.
mm,
Um, like it's like the story is so quick and it all happens so quickly, and it's just like, oh no, you can't undo a life that quickly, but you can. Like you can.
mm,
So I don't know, maybe that's like a big takeaway for me.
mm. Yeah, I think and all of these, I mean, like we mentioned, but all of these stories are there's a lot there's a lot to their even the short ones have a lot. They're heavy. There's a
Oh,
lot of meat on the bone. Whether or not I could grab it, I can get the meat off the bone and understand it is another
yeah.
matter. But
Yeah, they're thinkers. And
yeah,
they're not, it's written like it's clear. It's not hard to read. It's just
mhm.
like there's like layers.
Yeah, there's a lot there. And I found myself, looking things up and trying to find connections. Like for Smudge the Head, I started looking at artists that had the same names or trying to find some kind of connection. It's one of those books that you like. There's something here that there's something under the surface that I'm just not seeing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So, so did you enjoy this one?
Yeah. Yeah. I enjoyed this. It was like definitely a big challenge for me, and definitely not like anything that I've ever read before. And not all the stories like really resonated with me, but the ones that did, like I'm not gonna forget them. The
Hmm,
ones that like really struck me, I think they'll probably really stick with me, and that's always a good sign.
definitely. What were your top three from this one?
My top three were probably my favorite one was Last Night with Cicely. Then my second favorite was Smudge the Head, and my third was Bee Hunter.
Hmm.
You?
I think I'd have to go with. This is a tough one to pick three. Well, I do have a star next to Ann Lowe. It was Thursday in Ohio because the Angels eating trash.
Yeah. What's not to
Smudge.
love?
Yeah, what's not to love? Smudge the Head was one of my
Mhm.
favorites. And I think Every Day You'll Get Up and Go to Work was top three.
Yeah.
But it's close. There's some really good ones in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tight one.
Yeah.
And Bite is really good too. I mean, there's a lot. There's a few that I mean, yeah.
By that will probably be with me like the longest. It just freaks me out.
It's a great story to start out with, though. I think that was a
Oh
good way
yeah.
to start with. And I think the order of the stories kind of had a flow to it, and I think the especially the last story, it almost felt like um not to end on too much of a downer. It seemed like a fun there's a lot to the story, but it was like in a fun the storytelling was in a fun way to tell the story of
Yeah.
this giant woman who's being
Yeah.
starved every day.
Yeah.
So
Well, and it also was just kind of like, okay, for like the being the final story, like, all right, reader, like back to your normal life to do like what you do day in and day
mm,
out. To just it's almost like kind of sort of putting it in your face. Like this is your life.
wow, I like that. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Wow, like I said, I have a whole new perspective on this book now. And
Yeah, for
this
sure.
is one that I'm going to hang on to and read. You know, I'm going to go back to these every once in a while just to reread them.
Yeah. Yeah, this would be really interesting to maybe sometime down the road come back to it and see if we can get other people to read it too, because this is a discussion book if I've ever read one. Like this book is begging to be discussed. So it'd be interesting to like to hear even more people's like their takes on like some of the stuff that neither one of us got. And like maybe there's someone who could just like hit the nail on the head with it.
Okay. And I loved hearing your thoughts on all these, especially you know, hearing your perspective on Bee Hunter from your own personal experience, and that gave me a whole new shined a whole new light on that story and kind of what you know what's under the surface for that. So yeah, I think you're right. I think this is one of those stories. This is one of those books that you know it seems like there's so many you'll have so many different perspectives and so many different thoughts on a lot of these, and
Yeah.
it's one of those ones that you just want to talk about because it's and ask for help to understand.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's gonna be enjoyable, I think. That can be really be enjoyable for something that, if you read like a whole lot of kind of junk foody cotton candy books, which is nice and very distracting and like escapism, but something like this to that really makes you think, I
Mhm.
think it's been a while since I've read something that was like very thinky in this way. Or maybe not even not in this way. I've never read anything quite like this, but something that I mean, it's really challenging. It's been a while since I've read something that was like really challenging thematically for me.
Mhm.
So,
And I think you made the point earlier that it's not written the writing style isn't challenging to read. It's just it's written very well. It's just to you know to kind of look under the surface is that's
yeah,
the challenging part.
yeah, for sure.
But it's a fun challenge. It's in a good way. Challenging in a good way. It's almost like an exercise. For me, it was almost like an exercise to because I think a lot of us do like this passive reading where we're reading but we're not really reading.
Yeah,
You know, we're reading, but this is one of the ones that you have to actively read it to kind of understand what's or at least try to understand what's happening.
yeah, yeah. I think you also had a really good point about it, like having this sort of poetic quality to it, where the writing it flows like kind of lyrically, or it's hard to like describe exactly if you haven't read it before, but I know exactly what you mean. And um it also, much like poetry, I think you don't want to just sit and go back to back to back to back to back. Like you kind of the stories are like so loaded and
Mhm.
so like multifaceted, you kind of like have to like sit there and like soak in it for a second and think about it. It's not just like in the next one. No, 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 no. This is not that kind of short story collection.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to spread it out, and yeah, I think that helped because I had time to kind of reflect and um, kind of think. And I thought about sending you a message and being like, do you understand what's going on here? But
Yeah.
I'll just wait till the end because I wanted to kind of go through the whole thing and maybe tie it to it's somehow tied together, or something like that. So
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
This
Good
is a fun one.
discussion, book.
Yeah, this is a really fun one. Thanks for reading this with me. I know it's the first month I wanted to try this out, so thanks for taking the leap.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Like I said, as soon as you mentioned it, I was just like, yep, I'm doing that.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. So we can hope you'll read the next month's book with us. I'm not quite sure what it is yet, but maybe we can figure something out.
Yeah. As long as I've got, depending on like what the other books I have stacked up, as long as I can make room for it, I will.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right on. So everyone go check out Lauren's channel. I will link her channel down below here in just a minute. So go check out her channel. And you're almost at 600 subscribers already. So
Oh, yeah. Am I?
yeah,
I don't know if I've,
yeah.
can't remember the last
I
time
think
I
you're
checked.
570 something, but yeah, you're moving up pretty quick.
Wow, nice.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a great
thanks for
channel.
having
Yeah,
me. It's always fun to chat with you, Steve.
yeah. I think we're gonna chat tomorrow again, right?
Yeah, that's right. Tomorrow, yeah, like noon or something.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good time.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everyone for coming by, and if you haven't already, go check out Lauren's channel and be sure and subscribe and support her and her channel. So thanks
Thank
for
you.
hearing us talk about Pain and about this really great collection. Like I said, I have a whole new perspective on it now. So
Yeah.
awesome. Hope everyone has a good Saturday.
Bye.